Hello, everyone. Welcome to Quoth Raven, Lewis Brett Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Brett Raven. It is Friday night for February 19th, 2021, and our genre discussion tonight is Westerns, films of the 1960s. And the reason we're running late and show's going to be a little bit off tonight is because I had to go get my father's COVID vaccination, and instead of taking the 1 hour it took for the first shot, because you get 2 shots for the vaccination, we were waiting around for about 9 hours today, and it totally screwed up everything time-wise. So we're just going to have to wing it and see what we get. Pardon the pun, there's a raven there, but we'll see what we can do, okay? Alrighty then. We're going to go ahead and, our usual topic of discussion. And, give you the notice. In accordance with new copyright regulations, this episode of Quoth Raven is intended for 8 to 16 and up. While some of the content we will feature is kid-friendly sometimes, the context of the episodes to address adults and inform them of said content for them to research as consumers in service of their youth. In other words, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, teachers and librarians, etc. There's always the possibility of adult language present on the episode as well. Rated TV 16 and up. And with that having been said, let's get into the reviews. We're going to start with A Fistful of Dollars, 1964. Directed by Sergio Leone. Produced by... Hold on a second. I'm trying to get something figured out here. It's not working. My apologies. Let me see what's going on here. All right, now I know what's going on. Just give me a minute, folks. My computer's being fussy on top of everything else. There we go. All right, this will have to do. Again, I apologize for the problems with the computer being fussy. All right. As I was saying, directed by Sergio Leone, produced by Arrigo, Colombo, and Giorgio Papi, based on the story Yojimbo by Akira Kurosawa and Ryuzo Kikushima, which was uncredited. It doesn't really say who the writer of the story is in the credits. Starring Clint Eastwood, Marianne Koch, Joseph Egger, Wolfgang Lurski, John Wells, Daniel Martin, Carol Brown, and Benny Reeves. The production companies were Jolly Film, Constantine Film, and Ocean Films. Distributed by Unitas. Release date was September 12th of 1964 in Italy, where it was originally filmed and made, and then it was released in the U.S. in 1967. Running time is 1 hour and 39 minutes. Now, this is a spaghetti Western movie. And it's one of the most seminal Western films, Western genre movies of all time. It's also significant as it's Clint Eastwood in his first lead role in film. He plays an unnamed stranger who arrives at the town of San Miguel. San Miguel. How am I saying it? San Miguel. There we go. On the Mexico-United States border. Salvanito, the town's innkeeper, tells a stranger about a feud between two smuggler families vying to gain control of the town. The Rojo brothers, Don Miguel, Esteban, and Ramon, and the family comprising town sheriff John Baxter, his matriarchal wife Consuelo, and their son Antonio. The stranger, in order to make money, decides to play these families against one another. And he demonstrates his speed and accuracy with his gun to both sides by shooting with ease the foreman who insulted him as he entered the town. The stranger then seizes an opportunity when he sees the Rojos massacre a detachment of Mexican soldiers who were escorting a chest of gold, which they had planned to exchange for a shipment of new rifles. He takes two of the dead bodies to a nearby cemetery and sells information to each of these two groups, saying that two Mexican soldiers survived the attack. Each faction races to the cemetery, the Baxters to get to the supposed survivors to testify against the Rojos, and the Rojos to silence them. Both parties engage in a gunfight, with Ramon pretending to kill the supposed survivors and Esteban capturing Antonia Baxter. The stranger then tells Marisol, who's an Hispanic female that's kind of stuck with the Rojos, to go to Ramon and Julio to take Jesus home. He learns from Silvanito, that Ramon had framed Julio as cheating during a card game and taken Marisol as a prisoner living with him. That night, while the Rojos are celebrating, a stranger rides out and frees Marisol, shooting the guards and wrecking the house in which she is being held, creating the appearance of an attack by the Baxters. He gives money to Marisol, urging her and her family to leave the town. When the Rojos return and discover that the strangers freed Marisol, they capture and torture him, but nevertheless he does escape them. Believing that he's protected by the Baxters, the Rojos set fire to the Baxter home, massacring them as they flee to the burning building. And Ramon kills John and Antonio Baxter after pretending to spare them. Consuelo, John Baxter's wife, appears and curses the Rojos for killing these unarmed family members, but she is shot to death by Esteban. With help from Pirapiro, the local coffin maker, the stranger escapes town, hiding in a coffin. He convalesces within a nearby mine, but when Pirapiro tells him that Salvanito has been captured by the Rojos, the stranger has to return to town and confront them. Wearing a steel chest plate hidden beneath his poncho, he taunts Ramon to aim for the heart. And as Ramon's shots bounce off, he exhausts his Winchester rifle, trying to shoot down the stranger. When he runs out of ammunition, the stranger shoots the weapon from Ramon's hand and kills Don Miguel, Rubio, and the other Rojo men standing nearby. He then uses his last bullet in his gun to free Silvanito, tied hanging from a post. After challenging Ramon to reload his rifle faster than he can reload his own revolver, the stranger shoots and kills Ramon. Esteban Rojo aims for the stranger's back from a nearby building, but he is shot dead by Silvanito. And at this point, the stranger then says farewell to everyone and rides away in the film's last shot. Now, the story was interesting because Stranger's a very devious, conniving, sadistic bastard, but throughout the film, his motivations aren't really explained in the context of the film in terms of what his own moral code. I mean, he has his own moral code that he adheres to, and twisted as it is, but we really don't know why he chooses to take both of these families and pit them against one another the way he does. What is he doing it? What overall purposes does it serve? Would these factions have wound up destroying one another in a bloody battle between the two factions without his manipulations, or was he just simply saying, okay, these people are going to rule this town and terrorize this town unless somebody does something that make them fight each other? So in a sense, it's really an odd film in that way. Now, it is the first of a trilogy of dollars movies with Clint Eastwood as the stranger. And I don't want to talk about the sequels because I got other films I need to talk about tonight, but I will instead say that this is the first one, and I highly recommend watching for a few dollars more, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, all three as a trilogy. I just brought this one in as the first one, as the film that started it all, because it is an exceptional film. I give it doesn't have a rating. In this time period, the last 60s, they didn't have ratings. I would say they would have given it probably a PG rating if they had that kind of rating back then. But anyway, I give it 5 stars as a film. Our next film is Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid from 1969. It was rated PG. They did have the film rating system in place by then. It was directed by George Roy Hill and produced by John Foreman, written by William Goldman, starring Paul Newman, Robert Redford, Catherine Ross, Strother Martin, Jeff Corey, and Henry Jones. The production companies were Campanile Productions and the Newman Foreman Company. This is something that Paul Newman also basically produced with John Foreman. It was distributed by 20th Century Fox, and it was released on September 23rd, 1969, with a running time of 1 hour and 50 minutes. And what it's about is it takes place in 1899 Wyoming, starting out, and Butch Cassidy, played by Paul Newman, is the affable, clever, and talkative leader of the outlaw hole-in-the-wall gang. His closest companion is the laconic Deadshot Sundance Kid, played by Robert Redford. These two return to their hideout at Hole-in-the-Wall, the Hole-in-the-Wall gang's hideout in Wyoming, to discover that the rest of the gang, irked at Butch's long absences by the two of them go on their own without the rest of the gang. They've selected Harvey Logan as their new leader. So Harvey challenges Butch to a knife fight over the gang's leadership. Butch defeats him using trickery, but embraces Harvey's idea to rob the Union Pacific Overland Flyer train on both its eastward and westward runs, agreeing that the second robbery would be unexpected and likely they would reap even more money than the first. So they plan this robbery. And the robbery, first one goes very well, and to celebrate, Butch visits a favorite brothel in a nearby town, watches amused as the town marshal unsuccessfully attempts to organize a posse to track down him and the rest of the gang, only to have his address to the townsfolk, have his address, rather, his speech to the townsfolk, hijacked by a friendly bicycle salesman. He calls it the future. Sundance, in the meanwhile, he visits his lover, schoolteacher Edda's place, and they spend the night together. Butch then joins up with them early the next morning and takes Edda out for a ride on his new bike. But on the second train robbery, Butch uses too much dynamite to blow open the safe on the train, which is a much larger safe than the one that was on the previous job. The explosion demolishes the baggage car in the process, and people are hurt. As the gang scrambles to gather up the money, a second train arrives, carrying a 6-man team of lawmen. They were actually expecting this plan. The crack squad doggedly pursues Butch and Sundance, who they try various ruses to get away, but unfortunately all their plans fail. They try to hide out in the brothel and then to seek amnesty from their friendly Sheriff Bledsoe in the nearby town, but he tells them their days are numbered and they all have to flee immediately. Despite all attempts to elude the posse, Butch and Sundance determine that the group includes renowned Indian tracker Lord Baltimore and the relentless Loman Joe LaForge, recognizable by his white hat, skimmer hat, which is a type of cowboy hat. Butch and Sundance finally elude their pursuers by jumping off a cliff into a river far below. They learn from Etta that the posse has been paid by Union Pacific head E.H. Harriman to remain on their trail until both of them are killed. Well, given this circumstance, they know that they're not going to have any peace if they stay in the States. So Butch convinces Sundance none of the three of them should move to Bolivia in South America. And Butch envisions this as a robber's paradise. On their arrival, Sundance is dismayed by the living conditions and regards the country with contempt, but Butch remains optimistic. They realize that they know too little Spanish to pull off a bank robbery by themselves, so Etta becomes an accomplice and teaches them the language. And as a result, they become successful bank robbers down there, known as Los Benditos Yankees. Unfortunately, their confidence drops when they see a man wearing a white hat, the signature of the determined Loman LaForge, and fear that Harriman's posse is still after them. Because of this, Butch is just going straight, and he and Sundance land their first honest job in their lives as payroll guards for a mining company. Now, this gets a little bit convoluted. The first job that they have, they're ambushed by local bandits on their first run, and their boss, Percy Garris, gets killed. Well, Butch and Sundance kill the bandits in revenge, and this is apparently, according to the storyline, is the first time Butch has ever shot someone. I'm not sure I agree with that, but that's what the story does. Etta recommends farming or ranching or other lines of work, but they conclude that the straight life just isn't for them. Sensing that they will be killed should they return to robbery again, Etta decides to part ways and go back to the United States. Butch and Sundance steal a payroll and the mules carrying it and arrive later in a small town. A young boy recognizes the mule's brand and alerts local police, leading to a gunfight with the outlaws. Butch has to make a desperate run to the mules to get ammunition while Sundance provides covering fire. And both are wounded, and they take cover in a building. Butch suggests that the duo's next destination should be Australia, and they charge out of the building, guns blazing, directly into a hail of bullets from the massed troops who have occupied all of the vantage points. The film ends on a freeze frame as the sound of the Bolivian troops firing on the doomed outlaws are heard. And this is basically the classic iconic scene that you see in the picture here. It's a little bit different in the actual freeze frame of the film, but it's like this. I've always felt that this movie was tragic, particularly the third act after Etta leaves. Etta serves as Sundances Conscience, and once she's gone, there's no turning back for him because he's blindly loyal to Butch, basically. I thought that I don't know. I kind of wish in a way that the two had parted ways and Butch had done his own thing and he'd gone with Etta, but it is what it is. It's not what happened in real life. This is based on real life characters. So anyway, Paul Newman's Butch is very strange in personality. Butch Cassidy was a genius tactician. And yet in this film, he seems to be so stupid that he keeps getting himself into these situations where they're kind of doing stuff that shouldn't lead them to the danger that they get themselves in. It's like he doesn't seem to have a sense of reality or the endangerment that he puts himself and others in until he shoots and kills as the security guard. And again, I don't really believe that. I believe that he probably shot and killed someone before in all the different robberies he was in. But this might have been the first time where he saw it up close in person and saw the person that he killed face to face. Comparatively, it had to see the consequences of his actions, and I think that was what they were trying to get at the film, but I'm not sure. And John Norris says, "Good evening." Good evening, John. How are you today? Hope you're doing well. I thought you would be performing your theater tonight, or did that already end for the evening? Let me know. And in the meantime, like I said, Paul Newman's Butch is a little bit odd to me, but I really did like Redford's portrayal of the Sundance Kid. Basically, I look at it as he plays the Sundance Kid as a kid in an adult body, unable to discern proper choices and being easily manipulated into following Butch by Butch, while still trying to grow up and become his own man and stand apart from his friend, which is emphasized by his relationship with Etta. Catherine Ross, who plays Etta, does a very nice performance as well. The final scene of the film, the freeze frame shot of the ending of the movie, is one of the most iconic endings to a film in history, and I give the film 5 stars. And it was the opening night of the play, and it was a huge success, and that's great to hear. John, I'm glad to hear it. Let's go ahead and move on to our next film, which is Hang 'em High from 1968. It's the rating I found on IMDb was rated M. I don't know if that means M for mature or what, but it's rated M is what they said. I don't know if this was before the. I just don't know what that meant exactly. But anyway, it's directed by Ted Post and produced by Leonard Freeman, written by Leonard Freeman and Mel Goldberg, starring Clint Eastwood, Inger Stevens, Ed Begley Sr., and Pat Hingle. And this is kind of funny when you see these names, because you think about some of the other stuff that these gentlemen did would go on later on in their lives. But it's just these casts are so crazy talented when you think about the history of the people. The production company is the Malpaso Company, which is actually a company that Leonard Freeman helped Eastwood produce. Helped the two of them founded that company. It's distributed by United Artists, and release date was July 31st, 1968, and with a running time of 1 hour and 54 minutes. And what it's about is, in the Oklahoma Territory in 1889, tired lawman Jed Cooper, played by Eastwood, drives a small herd of cattle across a stream. A posse of 9 men, Captain Wilson, Reno, Miller, Jenkins, Stone, Maddow, Tommy, Loomis, and Charlie Blackfoot, surround him and demand he show them a receipt for the cattle. After learning that the man he bought the cattle from was a robber impersonating the owner, whom the impersonator, the robber, had killed, Cooper explains that he knew nothing about the murder, but only Jenkins expresses doubt about his guilt. After Reno takes Cooper's saddle and Miller takes his wallet, the men hang him from a tree and ride away. Shortly thereafter, Marshal Dave Bliss rescues a half-dead Cooper and takes him over to Fort Grant, where the territorial judge, Adam Fenton, determines that Cooper was in fact innocent and sets him free, and warns him not to take his own revenge. As an alternative, Fenton offers Cooper a job as a marshal. Cooper accepts, and Fenton warns him not to kill the lynchers, but instead to bring them to him for justice. And bring them in for trial. While picking up a prisoner, Cooper sees his saddle on a horse in front of a local saloon. He finds Reno inside and tries to arrest him, but Reno draws his gun, forcing Cooper to gun him down. Jenkins, learning of Reno's death at the hands of a marshal with a hanging scar, turns himself in and provides the rest of the names of the posse. Cooper then finds Stone in the town of Red Creek, arrests him, and has a local sheriff, Ray Calhoun, put him in jail. Most of the men Cooper seeks are respected citizens of Red Creek, but Calhoun honors Cooper's warrants for their arrest. While en route to arrest the other men, Cooper and Calhoun come across the murder of 2 men in the rustling of their herd. Cooper then forms a posse of his own to pursue the stolen herd and discovers that the rustlers are Miller and two teenage brothers, Ben and Billy Joe. He prevents the rustlers from getting away and from being lynched themselves, and then takes them to Fort Grant single-handedly when the posse then deserts him because he wouldn't allow them to hang him. He frees Ben and Billy Joe from their bonds only because they insist that only Miller committed the murders. Miller then attacks Cooper after slipping his own bonds, but Cooper subdues him while the brothers watch. Fenton, the judge, then sentenced all 3 rustlers to be hanged despite Cooper's defense of the teenagers. This disenchants and disgruntles Cooper. He doesn't believe in the law anymore, but when he's offered a bribe to take the money that he paid for the herd that he was accused of stealing and just walk away from it all, he's like, no, I'm not taking that. I'm still going to the people who are responsible for my own hanging are going to walk away from this. Cooper's such a justice throughout the movie is consistent, and it brings the character to a place that's not above the law, but more of a starker, more conscionable sense of justice rather than just serving the law. The people who hanged him attack him out of fear and try to murder him, but he survives this attack and is treated by a woman who in turn reveals her own hunt for justice against another group of men who raped her. After he heals, Fenton goads Cooper into one more hunting for those who killed him or tried to kill him. When he tries to resign from the marshals, and ultimately the story changes from being about Cooper's innate sense of justice compared to the tactical sense of justice that is what is practiced by law enforcement, be it the laws of the territories, which is at times questionable, or we could actually take this and apply it to modern times with law enforcement now. In other words, obviously a person who is attacked in such a manner today would not be afforded the opportunity to join a marshal service or a law enforcement service as they were back in that era. But there is still a sense of vigilante justice in the modern day society, especially with all of the racially charged and anti-LGBTQ sentiments in America today. So this film has a very poignant message that still resonates with audiences, or it should resonate with audiences today. And that's why I liked it. Eastwood is superb as Cooper in this. Between this and the Dollars trilogy, it's what solidified his reputation as an actor. The script is very well done, and I like the juxtapositions that the film presents between law, vengeance, and justice in those 3 concepts, because they are quite different in how we perceive them to be, depending on your point of view and perspective. So, you can still be vengeful while seeking justice. When does that line get blurred? When does that line get crossed? That's the kind of stuff that gets going on, gets presented in the film. It's a 5-star film. Our next film is How the West Was Won from 1962, directed by Henry Hathaway, John Ford, and George Marshall. Produced by Bernard Smith, written by James R. Webb, and it stars just a plethora of people. Carol Baker, Lee J. Cobb, Henry Fonda, Carolyn Jones, Carl Malden, Gregory Peck, George Peppard, Robert Preston, Debbie Reynolds, James Stewart, Eli Wallach, John Wayne, and Richard Widmark are among the primary cast, but there's literally double that in terms of actual people in this film. The production company is MGM Cinerama and distributed by MGM, Metro Goldwyn Mayer. Released on November 1st of 1962, and it is an extensive 2 hours and 44-minute film. And what it's about is it's basically it's got 6 stories going on by 3 different directors that spans a historical timeline of over 130 years. The film follows the history of the United States as it expands westward from the 1830s through the Western Plains movement of the 1850s, through the Civil War, to the changes caused by the automation and railroad era of the 1870s, and then finally the Outlaw West of the 1890s, with an epilogue to then modern times in the 1960s. There are just too many characters and story arcs to spell it all out here. Unfortunately, this is a cinematic masterpiece of filmmaking, one of the most critically acclaimed films of its era. It received 8 Oscar nominations and 3 wins, including Best Story Written Directly for the Screen. The cast is stellar, and the film should be required viewing for any fan of the genre of Westerns. And this is one of the films that John actually is behind. Love How the West Was Won. It is one of the most entertaining films. Absolutely love to see it in its original Cinerama projection. It has an outstanding score by Alfred Newman as well. And, forgive me, John's the resident musical guy. It's not that I don't know music, but when it comes to scoring and that type of element, that's John's forte more so than anything else, more than mine, and he'd be the one to talk about that. So I'll take him at his word on that. Just a second. Let's see what's going on here. I have some people hitting. Oh, wow. What's going on here? I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff going on my computer here on Facebook that I thought had to do with this, but it doesn't. John, check your Facebook Messenger, if you would, please. Mm-hmm. Our next film is Nevada Smith from 1966. Directed by Henry Hathaway and produced by Henry Hathaway and Joseph E. Levine as executive producer. Screenplay by John Michael Hayes based on the novel The Carpetbaggers by Harold Robbins. Starring Steve McQueen, Carl Malden, Brian Keith, Arthur Kennedy, Janet Margolin, and Suzanne Flechette. The production companies were Embassy Pictures and Solar Productions, distributed by Paramount Pictures. The release date was June 10th, 1966, with a runtime of 2 hours and 11 minutes. This is an early, I don't know. I know Technicolor and Panavision were in there, and I don't remember exactly time frames, how important that was. But anyway, in the 1890s American West, outlaws Bill Baldry, Jesse Coe, and Tom Fitch rob, torture, and brutally kill the white father and Kiowa, that's a Native American mother of young Max Sand. Max sets out to avenge their deaths. While traveling in the desert, Max uncovers a rusty old gun. Coming upon Jonas Cord, a traveling gunsmith, Max tries to rob him. Cord, recognizing that the revolver is non-functional, convinces Max that he has failed. Max tells Cord about his vengeful journey. Cord, sympathetic, shelters him and teaches him how to shoot. Once he's grown up a little bit more and ready to go, after the killers, he leaves Cord and hunts these killers, who have since separated and gone their own ways. He tracks down Jesse Coe to Abilene, Texas, with the help from Nessa, a Kiowa dance hall girl. He confronts Coe in a saloon. A knife fight ensues in a nearby corral, and Coe is killed in the fight, but Max gets severely wounded himself. Nessa takes him to her tribe's camp and nurses him back to health, and soon after they become lovers. Okay. We might have John join us in just a second. Once recovered from his wounds from the stabbing, he recovers and continues his pursuit of the people who killed his parents. He learns that Baldry is in a prison camp located deep within Louisiana swamps. Max deliberately commits a bank robbery, and that's in order to be sent to the same prison as Baldry. I don't know if I buy that part of the story, because what's the chance of you necessarily getting sent to the same prison? There's more than one prison in Louisiana. That's kind of weird. But anyway, once he gets to the same prison, he kind of befriends and persuades Baldry to escape with him, planning to kill him himself in the swamp. Pilar, a local Cajun girl working in the rice fields near the convicts' camp, agrees to help Max. Unaware of his plan to kill Baldry, she obtains a boat and navigates the trio through the swamp. Unfortunately, the boat capsizes early on, and Pilar is bitten by a venomous snake in the water. Max kills Baldry and doesn't do anything for Pilar, and she dies from the snake bite. Max has now escaped and is now hunting Fitch. And John's with us now, as you can see.
Hello.
And I appreciate you coming on, as always. Anyway, it kind of shows that Max has kind of lost his sense of decency. He's so obsessed with vengeance that now he's an escaped felon in his own right, and he's now hunting Fitch, the last of the murderers. Still blinded by revenge, he infiltrates Fitch's gang, calling himself Nevada Smith, hence the name of the title of the film. Fitch knows Max Sand has killed Coe and Baldry, and that Max is coming for him, but he doesn't know what Max looks like, apparently. So he accepts Nevada into the gang, but he's wary of what's going on because he's looking for who can possibly be out to kill him. As the gang greedily scoops up a stolen gold from a heist that they've committed, Max watches from a hill. Fitch realizes that Smith is Sand and grabs his share and flees, but Max pursues him and corners him at a creek. Fitch tries shooting Sand while pretending to surrender, but Sand, faster, shoots Fitch's hand and gets to get away from him. Fitch then gives up and wants Max to quickly kill him, and instead Max shoots him several more times, inflicting painful but non-fatal wounds. I don't know if I agree with it. It's meant to be non-fatal in the film, but when you shoot someone multiple times, they're going to bleed out. Especially in this era, they are fatal wounds if he doesn't get treatment and get them removed and stuff. And even if he does get treatment. It's not necessarily good at this time. He would probably die anyway. But Fitch is now lying in the creek, bleeding profusely, and he demands that Fitch beg for his life. Instead, Fitch calls him a coward for refusing to kill him, and Max decides that Fitch is not worth killing and rides away as Fitch continues shouting at Max to kill him. Have you seen this one, John?
Yes, I have.
Okay. My thought is McQueen shines in the film.
Absolutely. And Steve McQueen's one of my favorite actors anyway. Mm-hmm. Like I love him, and it's like not just the way he acts, but the way he reacts. And he's one of those actors where like he almost does better when he doesn't have to say anything, because like he really does such a great job with
body language
and facial expressions that you know exactly what he's thinking. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, and it's also an interesting thing within this character he's playing. He's so obsessed with vengeance that he doesn't realize the monster he's turning himself into.
Yes.
And the ending's kind of anticlimactic. I mean, yes, he doesn't go with. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing. He doesn't kill Fitch. He leaves Fitch to die, basically, which is monstrous in its own way. But yet, if he does kill him, does he cross that line of irredeemability, or is he already irredeemable in his own right because of what he does by not helping the girl who got the venomous snake bite? It's a very dark film for that era.
Yes.
It doesn't have a film rating. I guess in '66 they didn't have film ratings. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I gave it 4 out of 4.5 stars. What would you give it?
The same.
The same.
And I also thought Carl Malden was excellent in the movie as the villain.
Yes.
And it's like, and especially in that ending scene you were just talking about, where he's just
egging him on.
Yes, and in a way, you really want him to get his comeuppance, but then
he gets his comeuppance by not being killed, in a way.
Yeah,
because he's going to sit there and suffer. I mean, there's nobody around that's going to, save him. And like I said, when this story is taking place, there's really not much anyway that's going to save him.
Right.
Those are they're non-fatal shots, but they are fatal shots, is what I look at it. When you think about it logically. Mm-hmm. My kitty wants attention. Hello.
Let's give Kitty attention.
Come on. We're up here. No, you're gonna walk away instead. Okay. All righty. Let's see what we got here. And then there was some other photo posters I wanted to share here. There was quite a few promoting this film. Now he's back and nope, I don't want to get picked up. I don't want to be in your lap. Come on. What do you think of these posters?
I tell you, I really like posters like this. I wish sometimes we would see like really like great movie poster art today, which I don't think we do.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Like I said, there's a bunch of people here. I mentioned a bunch of people. And I didn't mention Martin Landau was in this film, but he is.
Yep.
Howard Da Silva's in this film. Pat Hingle's in this film again. There's just so many. These films have so many people that appear in these movies, even if it's just small bit parts. But it's just kind of wow when you look back on it. That these
Yeah.
people, you don't have films today don't have big name actors taking these small bit roles.
Right.
And it's like it's beneath them or something. And back then, I don't know if it was because of the way films were made. You had a contract with a studio. You had to appear in X amount of number of films, so you took whatever films you could to fulfill your obligations, I guess. But
But I said that like all those actors, especially those character actors, that even though you would see them appear in dozens of like Western films, but it's like their characters always felt so lived in, like even if they didn't have a lot of screen time,
right.
And
It's not like you see Eli Wallach. He's always a background guy, a supporting role character, but he's never the same person.
Right.
You recognize him as the actor, obviously, but he's never playing the same character from film to film. That's what
right.
I'm saying. They actually create characters. Whereas there's a lot of actors today where it's it's like, well, it's like John Wayne. John Wayne is John Wayne in every movie John Wayne's in.
Right.
That's the best way I can put it. He's not really taking another persona on. That's a lot of the acting. See, like Keanu Reeves is Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, except when he plays Ted from Ted and Bill and Ted. He plays a little bit different, but the other characters seem to be a little more one note to me, I guess. Let's go on ahead into our next film, which is The Magnificent Seven from 1960.
Oh, yeah.
Directed and produced by Don Sturges, screenplay by William Roberts, uncredited though with Walter Bernstein and Walter Newman on the screenplay, based on Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa, Shinobu Hashimoto, and Hideo Oguni. Stars Yul Brynner, Eli Wallach, again, Steve McQueen, again, Charles Bronson, Robert Vaughn, and Horst Buchholz. The production companies are the Murish Company and Alpha Productions, distributed by United Artists. Released October 12th, 1960, with a runtime of 2 hours and 8 minutes. And as cool as the remake with
Denzel Washington
is, doesn't hold a candle to this.
No, it doesn't. Not
even. It's like, I'm sorry. It's not. It's so crazy that we see. If we were to do a compare and contrast between these films, it would be like this is a 5-star and the modern one's like a 2 comparative, as far as I'm concerned. But let's go ahead and talk about this one here. Oh, I can't. All I got is the original 7 here, who played which characters. Let me see here. Basically, Wallach plays the villain in this. He leads a gang of bandits that periodically will raid a poor Mexican village for food and supplies. After the latest raid, in which Calvera, the character that Eli Wallach plays, kills a villager, the village leaders decide they've had enough. On the advice of the village elder, they decide to fight back. So they take all of their few objects of value they have left, and they ride to a town just inside the U.S. border, hoping to barter for weapons. Their determination impresses a young gunfighter, or not a young gunfighter, a veteran gunfighter, Chris Adams, played by Yul Brynner, and they approach him for advice. And he says, instead of trading for weapons yourself, how about you hire gunfighters instead to defend the village, as men are cheaper than guns. At first agreeing only to help recruit the men, Chris eventually decides to lead the group himself. Despite the meager pay being offered, he finds 5 willing gunmen, and they are Vin Tanner, played by Steve McQueen, He's basically gone broke after a round of gambling and resists local efforts to recruit him as a store clerk to pay off his debts. Um, so basically, they're like, well, I'll do this, you pay me, and I'll pay off my debts and be on my way, type thing. Um, Chris's friend Harry Luck, um, let's see, I don't remember who played that one. Who played Harry?
That's Brad Dexter.
Okay. Who assumes Chris is looking for a much bigger reward, or has a much more bigger reward to offer than what's being done for the work. Bernardo O'Reilly, played by Charles Bronson, which it's funny because he's Irish and Mexican. How do you get an Irish Mexican?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know enough about our history to know how the Irish did they go to Mexico? I mean, it's kind of a weird thing there, but anyway, he's fallen.
Who knows?
Yeah, but I thought that character Bernardo is one of the more humorous in the movie, in my opinion. Even though he's a serious character, but he's funny. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. There's Britt, played by James Coburn, who's an expert in knife and gun, who's just in it because he likes the idea of the challenge involved in taking on a bunch of people. And the dapper on the run gunman Lee, played by Robert Vaughn. So, he's basically he's more of a thing of trying to prove it to himself that he can do this. Whatever his past is, he has nightmares, and he's afraid that he doesn't have it anymore, and he's going to prove it to himself, if not anyone else, that he can still do this sort of thing. And then on the way to the village, they're trailed by the hot-headed Chico. Why they gotta name these guys Chico?
Yeah.
Horst Bukos plays him, and he's an aspiring gunfighter whose previous attempts to join Chris have been spurned. Impressed by his persistence, however, Chris invites him into the group because, hey, it's another gun and we need it, basically. So they work together and set up the village for traps and everything for Eli Wallach's group. And, we don't want to give too much away. We want you to go see the movie. So, it is a classic. How many stars would you give it?
Honestly, I would probably give this one a 5. Like it's got, and again, talking about this versus the remake is like, I really don't remember any of the characters in the remake. Like,
do you remember Denzel Washington?
Right.
And you remember
maybe Vincent D'Onofrio.
Maybe, but I was thinking more Chris Pratt as playing the gambler character.
But in the original, it's like everybody was so invested in the characters, and I can't take my eyes off Eli Wallach in this movie. It's like I'm just drawn to him, and he's not like it's not like and every character's flawed in a way. Like there's like, and even like Calvera, like even though his methods may be criminal, his intentions are honorable. Like you can actually see kind of where he's coming from.
Right.
And I just think that the characters are so well done in the original. And I've got to mention the music again by Elmer Bernstein because this movie has one of the most iconic pieces of theme music ever.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Keep talking. I got a computer.
Well, I heard a story about Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen, and of course Steve McQueen had been in a couple of films before, but this is really the film that launched Steve McQueen as a movie star. And I don't know how much of this is true, but I always heard that like Steve McQueen like really didn't want to be upstaged by anybody else. So when he was in a scene with Yul Brynner, like he would constantly be doing stuff to try to focus the attention on him and not on Yul Brynner. And I heard that it ticked Yul Brynner off so much that
I remember, yeah, I have heard that
story. Yul Brynner finally said, "Look, all I have to do is take my hat off, and nobody will be looking at you."
Right. That's true. That's true because he had such a visual presence whenever he was bald or not wearing the hat.
Yep.
On top of that, but it wasn't just that. I mean, Yul's presence was just so strong.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that McQueen did not. McQueen has a sex appeal. Yul Brynner has presence.
Yeah.
There's a difference. And I don't know if Steve was kind of ego tripping.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard about that. I remember hearing that. It's kind of funny though because it wasn't just Kim. I mean, when you make mention of that, and then you go to the new film, I could almost see the same thing with Pratt and Denzel.
Yeah.
I think it was more organically done in purpose, not combative behind the scenes type thing. But I think that maybe that mythology or truism of whatever happened between Brenner and McQueen, maybe that carried over and they tried to bring that to the characters in the remake. I don't know that, but I could see that.
Yeah,
those two characters were portrayed in the second film because the second film is not portrayed anything like the first.
Right.
I mean, they got so much, I don't know, modernization, I guess, in the second one. Comparative.
Yeah.
There are a lot more explosions in the second one.
Yeah.
The traps are a lot more modernized and elaborate than what would have actually been going on back then. I think the original is more pragmatic and believable in their structure and setup. But I'm still trying to get this stupid graphic to work. I don't know why it's not working. It's not fun. Yeah, you weren't. Did you get in early or late? From the beginning of the show?
No, I got in. I got in at the tail end of Butch and Sundance.
Okay, yeah. You knew I had to go take my dad to get his second vaccine shot today.
I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, the first shot took him an hour at the base. Today it took from 10:30. I didn't get home until after 5.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit messed up on our graphics tonight, and I'm trying to get this thing straight, and I don't know why it's not doing it, and it's really annoying. Um, let's see. There we go. I can look. No. There we go. I can do that. It's just doing a crazy thing. Our next film will be Support Your Local Sheriff. Have you seen that one?
Yes, it is. I love it. It's hilarious. It is hilarious.
Okay. You didn't have that on your list when you mentioned the ideas to
Yeah,
me.
I didn't even think about that one, but I have seen it.
Okay. Um, so let me finish getting that graphic right. Um, it's still fighting me. uh, Finally. You didn't think we're ever going to get it. There we go. Here we are.
There we go.
It's from 1969, directed by Burt Kennedy, produced by William Bowers and Bill Finnegan, written by William Bowers, starring James Garner, Joan Hackett, Walter Brennan, Harry Morgan, Jack Elam, and Bruce Dern. Distributed by United Artists, released March 26th of 1969 with a running time of basically 92 minutes, an hour and a half, basically. This is really the film that launched James Garner's career, in my estimation. I don't remember anything before this. Do you?
He did. Oh yeah, he did. He did some things. Yeah, he was in The Great Escape with Steve McQueen.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and he was. He did The Americanization of Emily with Julie Andrews before that. So yeah, he did some stuff before this.
Okay. This is just the thing that really, for some reason, this is what I remembered him. Maybe because this character became what he became known for as Brett Maverick and the other characters later in television. That's probably why I'm thinking that. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about what this film is about. And it's, it takes place in Colorado. And Prudy Perkins, played by Joan Hackett, notices gold in a freshly dug grave during a funeral. Her father, Ollie, played by Henry Morgan, becomes the mayor of the new settlement of Callender, Colorado. Other members of the town council, played by Henry Jones and Walter Burke and Walter Brennan, they bemoan the town's descent into chaos and corruption, and they're tired of the tolls exacted on their gold shipments by the Danbys, who are a family of near outlaws who control the only shipping route out of town. The town has no sheriff, as most people are too busy prospecting, and the few who have taken the job have been run out of town or killed by the Danbys or their cohorts. Enter Jason McCullough, played by James Gardner, who's a confident and exceptionally skilled gunfighter who says he's only passing through town on his way to Australia. He sees Joe Danby, played by Bruce Dern, gun down a man in the town saloon, needing money after encountering the town's ruinous rate of inflation. McCullough decides to take on the job of sheriff, impressing the mayor and council with his uncanny marksmanship. He breaks up a street brawl and later at the Perkins house meets Prudy despite her attempts to avoid him due to her embarrassing circumstances. What do you think about that?
I think this film is hilarious, and again, it's got all these wonderful character actors that you've seen in other films, but
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like I can remember. Yeah, just give me a second. Jack Elam, uh, who's called Jake in the movie, is kind of like the town drunk or a town clown, whatever, who becomes a deputy to McCullough. Dern, or Joe Danby, gets arrested by McCullough, and Walter Brennan plays Pa Danby, who is not accustomed to his family being challenged. And when he tries to get Joe out of jail, he can't.
I laughed so hard the first time I saw that. And first of all, like the scene where James Garner brings Bruce Dern to jail, and they don't have the bars yet,
right?
So, so what James Garner does is like he splashes some paint on the floor or something to make it look like blood, and then he goes like. And he says to Bruce Dern, now we don't have the bars yet, but we're going to pretend like the bars are there. And like that whole scene is just hilarious. And then once they finally do get the bars in and the family tries to break him out of jail, I laugh so hard.
Yeah, that's why I picked this, because all these films are so dark and melodramatic. I had to find a comedy.
Yes.
To win this somewhere. And I was just like, what's the best one I can find? And this was the one that came to my mind,
It's a good one.
Like you say, that scene where they don't cross that line, pretend it's there. And what if I don't? Now, you don't want to find out what's going to happen if you don't. It's just the way he has this casualness about him.
Yes.
Again, Garner. That's Garner in a way. I mean, he carries that out as Brett Maverick. He carries it out as James Rockford in the Rockford Files as well. But in this particular version of that, there's also this sense of exasperation on the part of McCullough as a character.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I don't want to be here. I want to go to Australia. Oh, what the hell? I got to do this. All right, I'll do it. Basically,
Yeah.
The whole thing he's just like, really? You're really gonna make me do this the whole time? And that's part of what makes the whole film so endearing, because how can you not cheer for his character?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, the other characters, I mean, Joan Hackett, I mean, I'm not saying she's not a good actress or that she's playing a bad role or anything like that, but I don't feel any sympathy towards her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I feel more sympathy for her father character played by Harry Morgan than I do for her. And of course, here we are with Harry Morgan, who is later known for MASH.
Yeah.
And, or actually right around the same time, because MASH was, 70?
Yes.
So this is like
the movie was 70, and then the TV show came a little bit later.
Right, but I can't remember if he was in the movie or not. Or was he just in the TV show?
I think he was just in the TV show.
Okay. Yeah. All right. But either way, I mean, it's funny that you see these actors and what they moved on to past this as well. So I give this one a 4.5.
I do too.
Okay. Let's see what else we got this week. we got James Stewart Shenandoah.
Yes.
And that's just a small one because I didn't get the graphics ready. This is one of your favorites, one of the ones you suggested. Well,
yeah.
Do you have a remembrance of what the story's about?
Hold on just a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't get to rewatch any of these before tonight, but James Stewart stars as a Virginia farmer. He has some sons and daughters, and literally the Civil War is happening all around them, and like every day it gets closer and closer, and his sons want to enlist or help out, and yet James Stewart, he doesn't want to have anything to do with it. And it's like he says at one point, basically if they're not on our land, it doesn't concern us. Or something to that effect.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but it's not that it doesn't. It's not that he thinks it doesn't affect him. At least that's not how I took it when I saw it. I looked at it as he doesn't own slaves.
Right.
He's too poor, and he doesn't want his sons fighting for the rich.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't necessarily, but at the same time, he's not necessarily against slavery. He's just saying, hey, I don't have any. I have no stake in this.
Right.
That's, kind of the thing. And it makes the character not entirely sympathetic as a result, because people who fought in the South again for the North did not do so because they didn't have slaves. They did so because they didn't believe in the concept of slavery. Not even necessarily believe that black people were equal or deserved it or anything. They just didn't, because people forget that we didn't just have black slavery in the South or in this country during the Civil War. We had slavery of white people. We had slavery of Native Americans as well. And so it's more of a statement against indentureship rather than the black slavery that was what was made the predominant situation. Mr. Blonde is here. Remember him?
Yes.
Once Upon a Time in the West and the Wild Bunch are my favorites. The Wild Bunch we'll be discussing shortly.
Yep. But anyway, getting back to Shenandoah, what happens is, and what is one of his sons gets taken prisoner.
Right.
And then, of course, it does concern him. And if I remember correctly, he and his sons go off in search of him, in search of the captured son.
Right.
And leaving the women to fend for themselves.
Right, which is not necessarily a good thing.
No. But I remember, this is one of those movies, I remember exactly where I was when I saw it. Okay. And I was in high school. I was taking a summer school class in history. And we had a teacher who loved to use visual aid. So he showed videos in class like every day, which of course completely endeared him to the students because we didn't have to listen to a boring lecture all the time.
That's true. That's true.
And so he showed this film in class. Back when we still had VHS tapes, but but one but
At
what
least it
happened
wasn't
is,
on one of those huge what are those things before VHS? The discs.
oh like Selective Vision or something, or laser discs.
Yeah, the old the laser discs was the 70s. I was thinking of that before VHS was popular.
But anyway, what happens? So Doug McClure plays one of James Stewart's sons, and he's in love with a girl that played by Catherine Ross. And they get, and of course he's about Doug McClure is about to go to war. He's about to join the war, and he and Catherine Ross get married before he goes off.
Right.
And during their wedding vows, and I can't remember exactly what she says, but like Catherine Ross says, whom I will love, honor, and obey till death do us part. And when she said that,
mm-hmm.
every boy in that classroom went, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
And what did the girls think?
Oh, they're probably just rolling their eyes like whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. That is weird. I guess that is kind of weird. I don't even think about it, but that is what the vows were back then.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of crazy. But yeah. All right. Yeah, I remember it's not necessarily James Stewart's best performance. I think he's done much better work than this.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one of the ones that you picked. So I'm kind of like.
And another scene that
I don't know. I'm trying to think here. I mean, I get why you picked it. It's kind of like the dichotomy between. Hold on a second. Like I said, the character is not very sympathetic that Stewart plays because he's not really heroic per se. He's just, I don't know if you want to call him an everyman in the situation, just trying to take care of his family or whatever, but he just doesn't seem to have the same gravitas that he does in other films in this one, to me. Does that make sense? Or am I wrong?
And I don't know that I really agree with that. Like,
well, that's fine. You don't have to.
But
I guess to me, it was just maybe he was just too conflicted of a character. It's not that he never makes a stand or never does the right things or anything. It just feels like he's forced to do those from outside. It's not something that is internalized into him as a person.
Yeah.
Does that make sense now?
I think so.
Okay.
But another reason I picked this is another scene that really stood out to me is when he's talking. I think it's Doug McClure's character again, but when Jimmy Stewart finds out that he wants to marry Catherine Ross's character, and he has this talk about women, and it's like he I think Lieutenant Sam is Doug McClure's character. That's it.
Right.
And so, like, he asks him, do you like her? And Lieutenant Sam just told him that he loves her, and it's like, and he's like, no, you said you loved her, and there's a difference between loving and liking. And you know, and then he talks about
there's a true statement there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're driving at. Am I wrong?
Yes. And then he goes on to say, it's no easy job, Sam, to take care of a woman. And I will just say that being married for 7 years in a marriage that ended in a divorce is like,
you relate to that.
Yes, I can relate to that too.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm still working on these graphics while we're talking. These graphics did not come out right. I don't know why they didn't. I'm cleaning them up. Okay. Another one that you picked this week was True Grit.
Yes.
Let me see if I can get that one up. Okay, it's just the poster. So if you've got the video, go ahead and go grab it. It's got John Wayne, Glenn Campbell, and Kim Darby in the film. We had to pick a John Wayne movie of some sort. I mean, you almost can't do westerns without a John Wayne film in the mix. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big fan of John Wayne particularly, but I have to acquiesce to that fact. And it's not a bad film.
Yeah, so here we go.
Okay, that's the kind of like the remodeled cover. Yeah. Again, I'll show there was the cover from the movie poster. I don't know if you can see it very well because, like I said, it didn't come out with the graphics right like I normally do, but it's much smaller. Doesn't even see it, didn't take it any bigger, unfortunately. Yeah. Go ahead and tell us about it, though, John.
So John Wayne plays one-eyed Marshall Rooster Cogburn, mm-hmm. and he's hired by Kim Darby's character to track down the person who murdered her father. Mm-hmm. And it's not just that she's hiring him to find the man. She insists on going with him, which that's not how he flies.
No.
So, and then along comes Glenn Campbell, who plays this Texas Ranger,
right?
Who is, I believe, is looking for the same man for something else. Mm-hmm. And so they three reluctantly team up together to find the man who murdered her father. And of course,
this is based on a novel of the same name.
Yes.
And one of the thing is, this is one of the few films that's noticeable because it was written by a woman. The screenplay was written by a woman, Marguerite Roberts, which is not common in the 60s.
Right.
And I guess we have to acknowledge that this is the film that Wayne won his only Oscar for.
Yeah.
And he reprised the role later in the film Rooster Cogburn, Rooster Cogburn, rather. I don't know. It's interesting because it's not just Glenn Campbell. I mean, it's got Robert Duvall in it. It's got Dennis Hopper in it.
Yep.
again, Strother Martin's one of the regular people that are in it, in these westerns of that era. Trying to think here. Like you say, Cogburn's a U.S. Marshal. He's old and kind of. He should be retiring, to be honest. Let's face it.
Yeah.
But the character that Kim Darby plays, Marty.
I think so.
Okay, I don't know if it's Marty or it's something like that. She basically says, "Well, I heard you have true grit," which is how we get the whole title of it.
Mm-hmm.
And she pays him the money to find guy, like you say, which is supposed to be an Indian territory in the storyline, but it's really not Indian territory yet. It is. I don't know. It's part of Oklahoma now. That's all I know.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said Campbell plays a Texas Ranger.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm trying to remember the movie because I haven't seen it in a while. Trying to think here. I know that they joined forces and they try to ditch her, but they can't. she always finds, which tells you a lot about the character by Darby in a way. Of course, it's also the fact that it's written by a woman. If it was written by a guy, they would have just ditched her. I'm telling you. But anyway, it's interesting. I don't know. I know it's over 2 hours. That's that, and I just don't remember enough of the movie to say much more. I gave it like a 3.5 or a 3.75 myself. But then I'm really not a John Wayne guy.
And I would give it a 3.5 too. I think John Wayne is the most memorable thing about the movie.
I think Glenn Campbell did a nice job playing the
Lord. He did.
But it's not like Glenn Campbell was a major actor. He was a musician.
Right.
So.
And I have to say, unlike the Magnificent Seven, this is one movie that, of course, this got remade too by the Coen brothers with Jeff Bridges as Rooster and Josh Brolin as the killer and Matt Damon as the Texas Ranger, and the remake is excellent.
I've never seen the remake, so
you should.
Okay.
Well, we just have to find a day together and watch movies or something.
Yeah, a whole weekend probably or something. But okay,
that'll work.
Well, wait until this COVID stuff's figured out, I think, because I don't know. But alrighty then. That brings us to our last film of the bunch, I think, and that is The Wild Bunch. So let's get this graphic right here. There it is. Hey! It actually worked. 1969, directed by Sam Peckinpah, produced by Phil Feldman, Screenplay by Waylon Green and Sam Peckinpah. Story by Waylon Green are Roy N. Sickner. Starring William Holden, Ernest Borgnine, Robert Ryan, Edmund O'Brien, Warren Oates, Jamie Sanchez, Ben Johnson, Emilio Fernandez, Strother Marthin again, L.Q. Jones. Production company was Warner Brothers 7 Arts and distributed by Warner Brothers 7 Arts. It was released on June 18th, 1969. It is a whopping 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 25 minutes.
And worth every minute of it.
True, it is. But it's funny how these films ran 2 to 3 hour gamut. A lot of these films did.
Mm-hmm.
Like How the West Was Won, Wild Bunch, quite a few of these films. And yet when you watch them, and this is funny, you never see these films played on TV anymore.
Except on like Turner Classic Movies or it's like some channel like that. But
Western, Stars Westerns, you'll see it on them. But I'm talking about regular network TV. Hey, let's show Avengers Endgame 60 million times. It's 3 hours. Hey, motherfuckers, put some real movies on. If you're going to give me 3 hours anyway, at least put a movie that doesn't suck. Let's talk about the Wild Bunch. This is kind of a revisionist Western in a way. The Wild Bunch is an outlaw gang on the Mexican-United States border trying to adapt to the changing modern world of 1913. Graphically violent. The characters are despicable in a way. They're very crude, very self-reliant, I guess. They'll survive by any means. They don't care who or what they have to do. It's about them surviving and them thriving, I guess. But it's interesting because they filmed the film in the desert in Mexico, which was kind of an unexpected thing back in the times that was shot, because they could have done it much closer to the border and still gotten some of the stuff that they were trying to do. They really went into the deep, poor, desolate part of Mexico to film this. A lot of interesting camera techniques as well for the era, for the film. A lot of multi-angle shots, quick cut editing between characters, and using both normal speed and slow motion imagery. Film was nominated for Best Screenplay for an Oscar, and I think the music was also nominated for Best Original Score.
That I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know.
Okay. This is the only one of the films. This is such an important film. The National Film Registry selected it for preservation in the Library of Congress in 1999. As culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. It is ranked 80th in the AFI's 100 Best Films of America and the 69th most thrilling film in American film history. That's pretty wild. And it also is listed as one of the 10 best films as the AFI ranks it as the 6th best Western of all time. So that's saying a lot for the film. I can't remember who plays what in this. Pike Bishop.
That's William Holden.
That is William Holden. Okay. He's the leader of the gang, and he's looking to retire after one final score, and that's a railroad office that has safe or cache of silver. And unfortunately, his gang is ambushed by his former partner, Deke Thornton, who's leading a posse of bounty hunters that are deputized by the railroad. Huge shootout, kills off more than half the gang. He uses a parade to get out and to get away from the bounty hunters and the deputized people, the posse, and the citizens of the parade. They get killed in the crossfire. That's how bloody and gory this film actually is. Like we say, these characters don't have morals or ethics. It's just survival for them. Once Upon a Time and Wild Bunch both represent the closing of the frontier and end of the West with the introduction of the train and the automobile. I think that's also true of How the West Was Won, because the latter segments talk about the railroad and how that portrayed in the West and leading into automation and stuff like that.
And that was a theme for, I think, pretty much all of Sam Peckinpah's westerns.
Yeah.
The death of the Old West.
Yeah, and Wild Bunch features a car in the beginning. Yes, it does, and ends with a machine gun. Yeah, that's there's something else about that. Going back to Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid and the gunfire scene, the climactic scene. I could have seen the machine gun scene, where the same kind of freeze frame of where what was going on at the end of that film in the Wild Bunch. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, the Transcontinental Railroad. Well, that's still the 1870s, 1880s, which was brought in with How the West Was Won. They talk about the Transcontinental Railroad and how that has affected things. But yeah, absolutely. I do think that the characters here, I mean, like I said, they the citizens get killed in the crossfire. Pike rides off with 3 or 4 guys that are the only survivors. And he had, 7 or 8 in his original posse, as I recall. And when they get away from the posse that was chasing them, they find out the loot's fake, that they're steel washers instead of silver coin. And there's a moment of not dismay, but it's beyond anger or frustration. It's just the whole notion of what they just went through. Nothing. What was it all for? Type thing. And I think that this creates a schism between the group that carries out the rest of the film. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Resignation. Yeah, there's a resignation on Pike's part, definitely, but I think the others are so angry with him because they kind of blame him for this foobarred mess. But I'm trying to think here. They pass into Mexico after that, right?
I believe so. It's been a while since I've seen this movie too.
Okay. And they go to a village where Angel was born. And it turns out that the town folk are ruled by a corrupt officer in the Mexican army, if I remember right. And they're losing their fight with Pancho Villa. So Pike's gang makes contact with that guy. But then Angel spots his former lover in the officer's arms and he shoots her and kills her dead. And that pisses off the Mexican general. And basically it kind of traps them into working for the general. That's what I remember. Is that right?
It's something like that. Again, it's been too long since I've seen it.
Okay. So it's like, okay, basically they're told to steal some weapons from a U.S. Army train so that he can supply his troops, and they'll get rewarded with some gold coin or something. And that doesn't work out right, because Thornton's posse that were chasing him from the first time shows up on the train that they've robbed, and they chase him across the Mexican border. So, they kind of feel like they've been double crossed by the Mexican guy. They're on the run again from Thornton's group. They get split up. And I'm trying to think. I know Angel gets captured and tortured, but I think there's another one with him, and they let him go to rejoin Pike's gang and let him know that they've got Angel.
Mm-hmm.
And so Pike's gang returns to try and rescue him, but it's pretty much too late by the time they manage this. He's barely alive, and then when he starts to let him go, he just cuts Angel's throat in front of him, and then Pike guns him down. The Mexican general or whatever he was. So the Federales are so shocked by this that they are now failing to return fire, and the rest of the group just shoot down the Federale. In the meanwhile, Thornton and his posse have caught up to them. But at that point, the Wild Bunch have already been shot. That's right. I think. Yeah, Thornton comes after the machine gun, right?
I think so.
Yeah, it's like I think Pike gets most of them, and then somebody gets the machine gun, and Pike and his men get killed, along with all of the present troops and stuff by whoever's left. And then Thornton shows up, and they take the remaining members of his posse to take all the Wild Bunch's bodies back to collect the reward. So I guess, I don't know. It's crazy though, because all of them are kind of in their own self-servitude, I guess is the best way I would say. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
To retain your freedom as Americans, go to Mexico. Yeah. Yeah, it. Are we talking about Ted Cruz now, Blonde?
But there are two things I remember most about this movie. One, it has a great opening title sequence.
Yes.
You know, where they'll show action and then they'll like do a freeze frame when they put the credits up. But of course, the title sequence ends, when they're doing the bank robbery, and Pike Bishop says, "If they move, kill them." Bam! Directed by Sam Peckinpah. And I was like, if ever a movie director announced his intentions, that was it.
Okay.
and as far as the violence, and it's like I don't like to watch gory stuff at all, but the Wild Bunch, like, I have no problem with, because as graphic as it is, there's also a beauty to it. Like, there's a style to it, with all the editing and the camera work, and it's like,
I mean, he never seems to give you enough. I'm trying to think of the word here. Everything's cut away so fast
mm-hmm.
with the pacing of what's going on in the action. He doesn't give you time to react to it. It's very visceral. It's very immediate. He doesn't give the audience time to digest and sit on a static image of blood and guts.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, as opposed to what would later become very popular in film, maybe popularized more so by horror slasher films, but definitely, I mean, when you think about Al Pacino's Scarface, there are specific scenes. When you think about The Godfather, there are specific scenes that are very static images that are meant to arrest you and think about it,
mm-hmm.
what you're seeing. I don't think that Peckinpah's style was meant to give you that. It was meant to have you have an immediate reaction, but be in the moment with the characters. You haven't got time to think. You're trying to survive it.
Mm-hmm.
And visceral violence is Peckinpah's forte. Yes, definitely. I would give this one a 4.
Me too.
Okay. How about you, Blonde? You say this is one of your favorites. What would you give it out of 5 stars? Since you're here. It's interesting, though. I mean, there were so many films to pick from, and you mentioned a bunch of other films as well. But I thought I'd stick with the 60s because there was so much stuff in the 50s, and there was stuff in the 70s and the 80s that I wanted to look at. And then I realized with this genre, we want to the prime era was the 60s.
Yeah.
It's one of my top 2 of 5. Yeah. He gives it a 5. That's fair. Yeah. So, yeah. So, Um, so we'll come back to westerns. I'll have John and I will do that together. Another 4 or 5 weeks probably when we get around to it next time. What era do you want to try? 50s, 70s, 80s, 90s?
You could probably do the 50s.
The 50s next? Okay. Let me write that down so I know what I'm doing for my show here. Western 50s. That'd be April, late April then, probably, or early April, probably.
Okay.
Hopefully, you will not be too bogged down and give you enough time to watch some movies.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time was better, in his opinion, in Blonde's opinion, than The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I have to think about that. Let's see. Okay. That's interesting. I can understand why that's the Henry Fonda and Charles Bronson film. That's spaghetti western. It's the spaghetti western that doesn't have Clint Eastwood, but it's by the same guy, same director, Sergio
Leone.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could see why you would pick that one. Yeah, this is interesting because this is a film that Eastwood was actually offered the role, and he turned it down. And so Bronson was offered the role of the movie's protagonist instead, after Eastwood turned it down. I'm not sure. Yeah, I could see. I mean, I didn't think of this one, basically, but I can see why Blonde wants to make mention of it. It certainly deserves it. There's a lot of films in the Western films in the '60s that I could have mentioned. Fonda as the villain was a shocking turn in its time. Yeah, that's true. Fonda was known more as a clean cut, babyface type actor.
Who almost always played the good guy.
Yeah, I'd say he's a babyface. That's what I was using a wrestling terminology there, John.
No wonder I didn't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, the babyface and the heels. The heels are the bad guys. Baby faces are the good guys. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Is it really regarded as Leone's second best movie?
I don't know.
That's interesting. Good, Bad, and the Ugly does drag, but yes, it does. Good, Bad, and the Ugly is a little bit long, and it does drag. Like the whole Dollars trilogy, which GB and U is the last of the three. I think part of the reason it drags a bit is because we've seen The Stranger enough. It's that, yeah. But I think okay. Oh, it's second to GB. They think it's second to GB&U. Okay. Um, I don't know. I kind of liked. I like Fistful better than either one of those myself. Maybe it's because it's still fresh at that point. Whereas I think the other two are more nuanced and more polished films than Fistful of Dollars is. But I also think that there's, well, for lack of a better term, it's like a lot of things in film or in comics or music. We tend to like the earlier stuff of the people. It's fresher, it's newer to us, and then once we get more familiarized with their aesthetics, either our expectations change or our I don't say they change. I guess we become comfortable with them. We know what they're going to do. I think that's more where I'm coming from with that. Um, I think that's why Eastwood turned down the job, because this film was made after Good, Bad, and the Ugly. I think he was saying, I've done this, and in fact, Leone did not want to make this film. He wanted to produce something else. He wanted to do Once Upon a Time in America, which is a crime drama instead.
Yep.
And that wouldn't happen until almost 20 years later, unfortunately, because that didn't come out until 84. But this was a film that, that was what he wanted to do back in 68, was that movie. Because he wanted to get out of Westerns entirely after The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. So that is an interesting, I guess, I would say that Blonde's probably right that this film is better in a way. Like I said, it's more polished than Fistful, but like I said, for me, I think it's just the character, just the introduction of the stranger, the newness of it. Whereas the other stuff was more like, okay, I know where this is going. I've seen it before. It's more polished. It's more, type thing. Yeah. Bronson's Harmonica Man technically had no name, right? That's true. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's certainly a film that deserved a mention. I appreciate you bringing it up there, B. So that's pretty much our discussion for tonight. That was our 10 films. I wasn't expecting John tonight. I thought he was going to be like not on at all because of the play. When did you guys do your play? I thought it didn't start until 8.
7:30.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you got home fast then.
Yeah,
because you got home.
It's almost a 2-hour show with intermission. So we got done about 9:30, and it takes me 30 minutes to get home. So I got home like a little after 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing you started late tonight.
Yeah, definitely. All righty then. I want to thank John for stepping in and helping me out because, like I said, my graphics this week kind of got messed up. It really didn't get to share all the stuff I wanted to normally share due to the situation with my dad. And hopefully that won't happen again. It won't happen again. He's done with his vaccines now for COVID, which is a good thing. But the wait in the room was like going to. Well, you've never been to a show like that. Dang. Blonde's been to San Diego Con. The wait line was 3 hours just to get in. And nobody was, don't you just love this 6 feet distance, separation? Now, granted, people were wearing their masks and they were minding their own business, not getting up in people's face too much, but it was more like 2 feet, not 6, between us, and that was just to get into the main room, and then the main room we still had to wait a bunch of time before he was seen, so I was not happy. Luckily, he didn't have. He took his wheelchair, his scooter, so he didn't have to try and stand all that time. I don't think he could have. I had a hard time doing it. So, yeah, my knee was not happy. All right, John, thanks for coming on. And thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Blonde, for your input tonight. We do appreciate that. For those of you who don't know who Mr. Blonde is a computer colorist. Who's working in the business for, at least 20 years, I would say. I think I met him in 96 or 97. Sounds about right when we met at San Diego Con. You've probably seen him in Marvel and DC books, and he currently does some new products that you can find on Kickstarter. I'll have to let you guys know more about that later. And he says adios. It's been 25-ish. Yeah. It's been a while because I got in 92, and like I said, I think I met him in 95 or 96 when he first started breaking in. So, all righty. Let's share our closing. If you want to reach me on Facebook, Lewis.BrightRaven, at Twitter at LewisBrightRave2, DeviantArt.com/BrightRaven at DeviantArt, on YouTube at Quoth the Raven Lewis Bright Raven, Gmail, Quoth the Raven LBR72 at Gmail. If you have questions for me, or you have some recommendations on some comics or some films or TV shows you might want me or John to review or something like that. And if you can't reach me on the Gmail, I don't respond. Try LewisBrightRaven at yahoo.com. Our next show will be Monday, and that'll be comics, news, and reviews. I will be reviewing Tarna #2 from Heavy Metal, Scout Comics Midnight Sky #7, We Live #5 by Aftershock, and some additional materials as well. Oh, John, you never did get to see the poster, did you? Because you were busy this week. I finally got the posters from Martian Jones this week, from Armand.
Okay. Oh, cool. That's turned out really great.
Yeah, there's only one problem. It got cut off at the bottom, and the colorist's name got.
Oh, no.
Yeah. There's only one problem there. I felt bad about that. That's the guy who actually colored the Skull Brothers piece, the Carlos Carrasco. You got these, right? Did you order these from?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I thought you did. Okay. But yeah, that's the only thing that's kind of sad about it. But I told Armand how to fix that for future reference. But yeah, I got 3 of them. So if you want one, let me know later.
Okay.
And okay. That being said, Wednesday, like I said, I'll be doing reviews. Thursday, next week, my guest is Graham Nolan, best known as co-creator of Bane, the guy who broke Batman's back. We'll be talking about his Kickstarter projects and his upcoming series through Aftershock with artist Brett Blevins, Girls of Dimension 13. So he'll be there on Thursday. And then next week, our genre, I guess, will be back to horror. So I guess next week is we've done TV shows and we've done films with horror. I guess we got to go to books, John.
Well, I don't think I'd be much help there.
Well, I guess I'm on my own next week then. We'll see. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, that'll be the genre. So we'll be back to horror next week. Okay, folks? So we'll see you on Monday. And until then, Company of Wolves is on Amazon Prime. More surreal than horror, but as werewolves. Yeah, I don't have Amazon or Netflix or any of that stuff. That's
I do. I'll have to watch Company of Wolves. I've never seen it.
Okay, but you've heard of it. Okay, cool.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. That's cool. All righty then. We'll see you guys next week then. Have a good one.
See you, folks.